I'm Quackster, and this is Quack in the Dark. If you're new here, here's the rule. You'll hear 4 stories tonight. Only one of them is true. The other 3 are fiction. But it won't feel that simple, because real life has a way of sounding impossible, and fiction has a way of sounding familiar. This show lives in that space. The late hours, the quiet moments, the places that feel empty until they don't. At the end of the episode, you'll make your guess, and in the reveal mini episode, I'll tell you what actually happened. So wherever you're listening, keep the lights low, keep your volume steady, and don't rush. The details matter, because one of these stories shouldn't be real, but is. Let's begin. Most people trust elevators because they're predictable. You press a button, a number lights up, you arrive where you're supposed to. But every now and then, an elevator reminds you it's just a box hanging in a shaft, and you don't always get to decide what it shows you. Daniel stayed late in a downtown office tower finishing a project no one would remember. At 12:42 a.m., the building felt hollow, too quiet, like the air itself was waiting. He locked his office and walked to the elevator bank. All the lights were on, but no one was there. Not a single voice, not even a cleaning cart. He stepped into the elevator alone and pressed L for lobby. The door slid shut with a soft, final sound. The elevator began descending. For a few seconds, it was normal. A gentle drop, a steady hum. Then it stopped. Not a jolt, not a malfunction chime, just a stop. The floor display flickered. 0. Daniel frowned. There was no floor 0. The building directory didn't even list it. The basement levels were labeled B1 and B2. Yet the doors opened anyway. A concrete hallway stretched out beyond the threshold. Unfinished. Dark. The kind of space that looks like it was built and forgotten. The overhead lights didn't work, but far down the corridor, a dim glow pulsed like a dying bulb. Daniel stared. He didn't step out. He pressed a closed door. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Still nothing. A cold heaviness settled in his chest. A quiet realization that he was no longer in control of the box he was standing in. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Not behind him. In front of him. From down that corridor, running. Fast. Hard soles on concrete, getting closer in a straight line. Daniel hit lobby again and again. The footsteps got louder. Closer. The sound filled the hallway like someone sprinting directly at the elevator. Daniel's mouth went dry. He leaned back in the elevator wall, trapped between the doors and the panel. The footsteps reached the edge of the elevator's threshold, and then the door slammed shut. So fast it looked violent. The elevator shot upward, not down. Up. Past the lobby, past Daniel's floor. Up and up. until it reached the top of the floor and stopped. The doors opened to an empty executive hallway. Daniel didn't move. He waited until the doors closed again. When the elevator finally returned to the lobby, he stumbled out and went straight to security. A night guard glanced up from his monitor. "You okay?" Daniel tried to explain. "Floor 0, the hallway, the running." The guard watched him with a slow, careful expression, like Daniel was describing a dream. "Which elevator?" Daniel pointed. The guard pulled up the system logs. According to those records, the elevator never stopped. No floor 0, no door open. Just a clean ride from Daniel's floor to the lobby. Daniel stood there staring at the screen. The guard shrugged. "Elevators do weird stuff sometimes." Daniel didn't argue. He took the stairs after that. Always after that. Here's what's unsettling about elevators. You don't have traction. You don't have options. You don't have space. If the doors open somewhere you don't recognize, you have two choices. Step out or stay in the box and hope the box behaves. One story down, 3 left. Grief changes the way time feels. A week feels like a day feels like a year. And when someone is gone, your brain keeps reaching for them anyway. That's what makes messages like this dangerous. Because they don't just arrive on your phone, they arrive in your mind. Maya lost Jordan in a crash that wasn't supposed to happen. Wrong place, wrong moment. The funeral felt distant, like she was watching it from someone else's life behind the glass. Afterward, she did what people do when they don't know what to do. She kept the conversation thread. Jordan's contact stayed pinned at the top of her messages, a little anchor she couldn't let go. 2 weeks later, at 3:03 a.m., her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it. Then she saw the name, Jordan. Her stomach dropped. She sat up so fast the blanket slid off her shoulders. The message was simple. "You awake?" Maya stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then typing bubbles appeared, the 3 dots. She stopped breathing. A second message came in. "Don't ride tomorrow, not the car." Maya's heart began to pound in a slow, thick rhythm. She called the number, straight to voicemail. She clicked Jordan's profile, the one that should have been inactive. Last seen, now. Her throat tightened. She didn't sleep again. In the morning, she stood at her usual rideshare pickup spot anyway, the corner by the coffee shop, and waited. A car pulled up. Same make, same model. The driver waved like he already knew her. Maya's hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. Then she remembered the message. She stepped back. "I'm good," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Sorry, wrong ride." The driver's expression didn't change. He waited a beat too long, then drove away. Maya got in her own car and drove to work with her jaw clenched the entire time. At 8:17, a breaking news alert flashed across her phone. A rideshare driver had been arrested after intentionally crashing his vehicle with a passenger inside. The pickup location mentioned in the report, the intersection by the coffee shop, was Maya's corner. She sat in the In her car, in the parking lot, felt her hands go numb. Jordan never texted again, but Maya still opens that message thread sometimes, just to look, just to remind herself she listened, and because some part of her still wonders, if she hadn't listened, would that message have tried harder? Here's the thing about messages that shouldn't exist. Your brain will invent explanations, delayed notifications, account glitches, a hacked number, because the alternative is too heavy. And yet, sometimes coincidence is so perfect it stops feeling like coincidence. 2 stories down, 2 left. Night shift workers learn the building's rhythm. They learn what sounds belong. They also learn what the building looks like when it's empty, which is why they notice immediately when something appears that shouldn't be there. Louise worked as a janitor in a hospital that truly never felt quiet. Even at night, machines hummed. Air vents breathed. Monitors beeped softly in the distant rooms. His shift ran midnight to 8. He liked that consistency. Same hallways, same routine. At 2:25 a.m., he reached the 3rd floor corridor with a large window overlooking the courtyard. He called it that because it's open space, dark grass, a few trees, a walkway. He wiped fingerprints from the glass and froze. A man stood in the courtyard below, still, motionless, looking up. Louise stared down at him, waiting for the man to move. The man didn't. Louise told himself it was a visitor, a smoker, someone getting air. He finished his work and moved on. The next night, at 2:25 a.m. exactly, the man was there again. Same spot, same posture. Looking up. This time, Louise mentioned it to a nurse. She blinked at him. "There's no courtyard on that side," she said. Louise laughed once, uncertain. "Yes, there is. It's there every night. I see it." The nurse's face didn't change. "That's the old wing. It was demolished years ago, and there's nothing there." Louise felt a flicker of irritation. He returned to the window that night to prove it. At 2:25 a.m., the man was there, looking up at him. Louise raised his hand in a small wave, half joking. The man slowly raised his arm and pointed behind Louise. Louise's chest tightened. He turned. At the far end of the hallway, in a dim light by the exit sign, another man stood. Identical silhouette, identical stillness, watching him. Louise turned back to the window, and the courtyard was empty. No, only darkness where the grass should have been. He didn't finish his shift. The next morning, security pulled the camera footage from the corridor. The footage showed Louise cleaning the window, stopping, waving, then turning sharply to face the hallway. He stood still for a long moment, like his body didn't want to move. Then he walked away quickly. There was no man outside. No figure below, just Louise. Alone, waving at nothing. When two versions of something appear, most people focus on the one in the front of them. But here's the details I can't stop thinking about. The man outside didn't wave back. He pointed, like he was warning Luis, or directing his attention towards something already inside 3 stories down. One left. This last one is where a lot of listeners make their final guess. Now, before we get to our final story, I'd like to take this short break, let everyone breathe for a moment, and I'd like to ask a favor. No matter what area you're listening on, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, I'd like to ask for a 5-star review, a like, a subscribe, a mention to other friends of yours who you think would like to listen to this podcast. It really helps the show continue, and I very much appreciate it. All right, let's get to our final story. Hospitals run on records, charts, head counts, assignments. Everything is tracked, which is why this story feels like a mistake, or something worse. The nurse had worked nights long enough to know how the brain can drift at 2 a.m. The way fluorescent lights blur, the way quiet makes your thoughts louder. She did her rounds with the same routine every night. Check vitals, confirm names, count beds. That ward was small. A room with 4 assigned patients. She checked the chart. 4 names. She entered. 1, 2, 3, 4. All asleep. She adjusted a blanket, checked a monitor, and stepped back out. Halfway down the hall, something tugged at her. Not a sound, a feeling. Like she'd miscounted. She stopped, looked down at the chart again. 4 names, 4 beds. She went back. Then she opened the door. There were 5 people in the room. 5. One sat upright facing her, watching. The nurse's mouth went dry. She blinked hard. Looked again. 4. Only 4. The upright figure was gone. The extra body, gone. The room looked normal. She stood there too long, trying to make her thoughts line up with what her eyes were showing. She left and reported it, embarrassed, to the charge nurses. Maybe I'm just tired, she admitted. They pulled security footage the next morning at 2:11 a.m. The camera angle showed the patient room clearly. 4 beds. 5 figures. One of them slowly sat up. The movement was controlled, deliberate. It swung its legs over the side of the bed, stood, and walked out of frame. No one entered the room. No one exited the ward. No door opened. Administration called it a camera glitch, compression artifact, light distortion. But the nurse knew that what she saw. The several staff members stopped volunteering for that ward, because once you've miscounted a room like that, you don't trust your numbers anymore. And if you can't trust your numbers, what can you trust? 4 stories tonight. An elevator floor that shouldn't exist. A message from someone who shouldn't be online. A man outside a window that shouldn't look out on anything. and a hospital room that held one more person than it should. Only one of these is true. The other three are fiction. Which one actually happened? Decide now. Don't overthink it. Just pay attention to what stayed with you. Because the true story usually leaves different kind of mark. I'm Quackster, and this has been Quack in the Dark. In the next mini episode, I'll reveal the truth. Until then, if you work nights, don't rush your head counts. Good night.